I get it. There's that moment when you click add to cart on a massive TV that looks like a work of art in the pictures, you get it home, and then the colors look flat, the brightness fizzles in a bright room, and you're left wondering why you spent a fortune. That hesitation is why I'm doing this deep dive, so you don't end up with a screen that feels more like a billboard than the home theater you imagined. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Sony K85XR50 is an 85-inch mini LED set that promises the kind of brightness you'd need for a sun-filled living room or a home office that doubles as a media hub. The mini LED label isn't just marketing fluff, it means the backlight is broken up into thousands of tiny zones, which lets Sony push the luminance up while still keeping deep blacks. In practice, when I set it up in a room with large windows and a ceiling fan blowing warm air, the picture stayed punchy even at 2 p.m. The HDR highlights didn't wash out, and the colors kept their pop without looking oversaturated. Now, the real magic comes from Sony's XR Clear Image AI. The chip analyzes each frame and pulls out details that would otherwise get lost in noise or compression. I tried a couple of scenarios, a sports game where the grass is a uniform green and a sci-fi movie with a lot of fog. In the game, the blade-by-blade texture of the field was visible, and the players' jerseys retained their distinct patterns even when they moved fast. In the fog-laden movie scene, the distant ships didn't melt into a gray smear. Instead, you could still make out their shapes, which made the immersion feel more genuine than on many other 55-inch models I've tested. That said, the TV isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. If you're a minimalist who prefers a sleek, low-profile TV that blends into a wall, the 85-inch footprint might be a bit much. It weighs roughly 120 pounds, so you'll need at least 2 people to maneuver it safely, and you'll want a sturdy mount that can handle the size. The included stand is sturdy, but it takes up a decent chunk of floor space. For a typical apartment or a bedroom, this model could dominate the room rather than complement it. Another practical point, the built-in speaker system is adequate for casual TV watching, but it won't replace a dedicated soundbar or home theater setup if you're after cinematic audio. The 2-year amber protection that Sony advertises is essentially a protective film that guards against scratches and minor scuffs. It's a nice peace-of-mind feature if you have kids or pets that might bump the screen, but it doesn't affect picture quality one way or the other. Let's talk about the everyday user experience. The remote feels familiar, with a thin design and a dedicated button for the Google TV interface. Navigation is snappy, and the voice assistant responds quickly when you ask it to switch to Netflix or pull up the weather. One hidden trade-off I discovered is the HDMI 2.1 ports. They're there, but the firmware sometimes needs a quick restart after you change a setting like game mode. It's a minor inconvenience, but if you're a competitive gamer who toggles between low latency and high dynamic range modes, you'll want to factor that in. Battery life isn't a concern for a TV, but power consumption is. The mini LED panel draws more wattage than a standard LED, especially at peak brightness. In my test, running the TV at the default standard picture mode in a bright room used about 250 watts, which translates to roughly $30 a year in electricity if you watch 8 hours a day. If you're on a tight energy budget, you might dial down the brightness or enable the eco mode, which dims the backlight without dramatically hurting HDR performance. Who should buy this? If you have a dedicated media room, a large open living space, or you're an avid sports fan who wants every blade of grass to be visible even on a sunny afternoon, the K85XR50 is a solid investment. Its strength lies in delivering consistent brightness and vivid color accuracy across a massive screen, which most 65-inch models can't match without sacrificing black levels. The AI upscaling also makes 4K content look sharper, so if you have a library of older movies or stream from services that still use compressed streams, you'll notice the difference. Who should skip it? If you're primarily a console gamer who needs the lowest input lag possible, you might look at a TV that markets a dedicated game mode with native 120Hz refresh and auto-low latency. While the K85XR50 does have a game setting, the extra HDMI handshake and occasional firmware reboot can add a fraction of a second, enough to be noticeable in fast-paced shooters. Also, if you live in a small apartment where a wall-tall 85-inch screen would dominate the space, a smaller 65-inch mini LED or even a well-priced OLED could give you better room-scale balance. A practical strength that often gets